Let's talk about Argentina and how most people don't like Argentinians.
Pelotudo.
Before we talk about Argentina, you need to understand the system. When Spain colonized Latin America, they created a racial caste system. At the top, you had peninsulares, Spaniards born in Spain. Right below them, you had criollos, born in the Americas but of Spanish descent. Followed by mestizos, mulattoes, indigenous people, and enslaved Africans all the way down at the very bottom. Most Latin American countries eventually embraced their mixed identities. Brazil, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Dominican Republic. Well, we'll talk about that another time. But that's what made us unique, curio, exotic by all. But Argentina, not so much. They actually became known for rejecting it. So after they finally got independence from Spain, Argentinia's elites gathered around and said,
what kind of country do we want to build?
And they all decided,
Maybe we should go for like a European one.
They basically said, I kind of like our slave owners. I want to become one of them. Dog, they wrote this shit into their constitution. Article 25, that's still in there to this day. It says, the federal government shall encourage European immigration. The president Sarmiento wrote a book called Facundo. In this book, he says Argentina's future has a choice. Choose between a civilized nation, meaning European, or a barbaric nation, meaning anyone indigenous, gauchos, or anyone that wasn't white. He literally wrote in his diary, what is to be done with such blacks hated by the white race? But before they could become European, they had to clear the land. In the late 1800s, Argentina launched an operation called Conquest of the Desert, a military campaign that killed, displaced, and imprisoned indigenous communities in Patagonia.
You evil fucking con!
Many historians describe this as a genocide and an ethnic cleansing. They wiped out the whole indigenous population in order to make room for the Europeans they were recruiting. Like for part 2, and I'll show you exactly what Argentina did in order to genocide 70% of the black people in Argentina down to less than 1%. Now remember to follow if you like to learn about culture and history in a modern way. You ever wonder why everybody says Argentinians are racist?
Every day.
Well, it's actually embedded in them through history. Let me show you. After the conquest of desert, in which the Argentinian army killed, displaced, and imprisoned indigenous people across the Patagonia, in which historians called it a genocide and an ethnic cleansing, they went after the black population next. In 1778, roughly around 30% of Buenos Aires was black. I know, that kind of surprises me too. In 1887, about 1.8. Today, 0.37.
How is that possible?
That is not natural. Why do you think you never see a dark Argentinian, but in Latin America you come across darker people and lighter people? Afro-Argentinians were purposely sent to the front lines of wars, forced into neighborhoods with no health care, infected with diseases, forced into interracial marriages to dilute the population, and then erased from the census entirely. They didn't consider them human anymore. A 1905 newspaper celebrated it. It said the African tree now produces white flowers. And then they opened the floodgates. Over 6 million Europeans were brought in between 1800s and mid-1900s. Steamship advertisements recruited Italians and Spaniards specifically to widen the country. And it worked. Argentina went from a 30% black population over to a 97% European population. And even today, most Argentinians genuinely believe they never participated in the slave trade. But it gets even darker. After World War II, up to 5,000 Nazi war criminals escaped to Argentina, the most of any country on earth. The president at the time, Juan Perón, secretly ordered escape routes to be built specifically for the Nazis.
What kind of shit is that?
Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust, he lived freely in Buenos Aires for over a decade. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death of Auschwitz, infamous for human experimentation, lived there under his own name. A document with over 12,000 names of Nazis who escaped to Argentina were found there hidden. They didn't just accept Nazis, they recruited them. The same way they recruited Europeans about a generation before. Now fast forward to 2022's World Cup, and you hear all these racist chants being sung publicly by the Argentinian fans. Like for part 3, and I'll show you all the racist incidents that the Argentinian team participated in. And remember to follow if you enjoyed learning about history and culture in a modern way. Let's talk about how you became European. Step 1, clearing the land. In the late 1800s, Argentina launched Conquest of the Desert, a military campaign literally designed to kill, displace, and imprison the entire indigenous community, or how we just call it today,
A genocide.
or some of you guys might know it as
Ethnic cleansing.
wiped out the people who were there first and made room for the Europeans they were about to invite. Step 2, erase the black population. In the late 1800s, from the 40% of the black Argentinian Armenians there, it dropped to 0.37 somehow. Their president Sarmiento carried out something called a covert genocide. He sent black men to the front lines to die in war.
Sick fucks.
Mass imprisonment, mass executions, forced them into neighborhoods with no health care, then opened the borders to specifically whiten the country with 6 million Europeans. A newspaper in 1905 celebrated this. It said the African tree now produces white flowers, and in 1895 they stopped counting black people in the census altogether. Erased them from the data, erased them from the textbooks, erased them from history, but there's still 2 huge parts left. The one where the president snuck in at least 12,000 Nazis into the country, and the other where they made 30,000 people disappear for protesting this. And this part didn't happen too long ago either.